I'm going to start just by putting the knife down flat on one side and stroking it back and forth, and I'm not pressing very hard. I just have light finger pressure on the back. And what you'll see pretty quickly, um, show you here. You'll start to see scratches. You can see, tilt it just right in the light. So you can see along the back of the blade and towards the tip and a little bit towards the handle where I'm starting to scratch the blade. And because sharpening is the process of removing metal until these two sides of the knife meet perfectly at an edge, um, we want to remove metal as evenly as possible, um, which just it's going to mean just checking every once in a while. And the evidence that we're removing metal is those scratches that we can see in the blade right there. Now I'm going to do that bevel. So I'm gonna do the same sort of stroke back and forth with light finger pressure on the blade, but I'm gonna lay the knife down flat and tilt it up just a hair. And I'm staying on this same grit through all of these steps for now. And it's very important that you keep the forward and backward pressure on the knife even, because if you tip forward too much, you're going to curve the blade. You're going to remove more off the tip than on the back, and you'll get a curve at the front. And if you if you lean back, you're going to do the opposite. So you're going to get like a banana shaped edge on your knife. You do that. So you want to keep the knife, equal pressure on the across the edge, but also you want to keep your strokes um, or the blade parallel, I'm sorry, perpendicular to the direction of your stroke.
Daniel, do you ever, with these knives, do you ever go to a grinder or you do everything on the stones?
I do everything on stones. Um, and like I said, the reasons for that are one, convenience, because I have this stuff in my desk. Yeah, if I need to put a fresh edge on a knife, I don't have to move. I can just do it all. And also, like, what you're seeing now is, this is the for me, I go a lot faster when, I'm just here by myself. And the other reason is that because people are coming to me to learn how to sharpen knives, I want to make it as accessible as possible. And it's most people are not going to have a grinder, but they can get set up with like the sharpening film, the peel and stick sharpening film in a flat surface really cheaply. Um, and it's a good skill to have if you're going to be a carver. You need to learn how to sharpen things by hand and not necessarily rely on machines. So there's like philosophical reasons for me in terms of like teaching other people how to do it. Like I want to make sure that I am doing things more or less the same way that the people I'm teaching or who are reading my book or watching videos or whatever do it. So the short answer is no. No, I don't ever use a grinder.
Yeah.
So I'm still grinding the bevel here, and I'm gonna do that until I get a burr. And I'm starting to feel it. But I'll get a pretty hefty burr on this so that I can show it on camera. And a burr, as you probably know, just forms when because I'm abrading, I'm removing metal from the surface that's on the stone. And when I remove metal to the point where I'm removing metal off this edge, the particles of metal at that very edge, they curl up. They'll like feather up, and that gives you a burr on this side that you can feel just by running your finger very lightly back over the uh, the blade. So it's a tiny line of light there at the edge, the very edge of the blade. That is this is a it's pretty tiny, but it's there. And if you can't see it, you can just trust me, I can feel it. So it's not, I don't quite have one back here. Again, this is not the most important part of the blade, but because you want to keep the blade straight, I am going to try to get a burr that's even along the entire edge. And now I can combine those two steps that we just did. We did the side of the knife and we did the bevel with the knife tilted up a little bit like that. Now I'm going to combine those two steps by stroking the knife back and forth. And as I stroke it, I'm going to pick it up and lay it back down again. And I'm going to be kind of random about it because what I want to do is I want to round that bevel over. So when I get going, it's hard to see what's happening on the stone, but I'm flat and then I'm rocking the knife up to my bevel angle and then back down and over again. This is the analogy I always use is this is like a little bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. It's because you're doing two different motions. You're keeping the knife perpendicular to the direction of your stroke. You're stroking back and forth, and as you're stroking back and forth, you're tilting the knife up and down to your sharpening angle, your bevel angle. So you can start to see it here. It's not, you can still sort of see where there's a transition between the side and the bevel, but it's starting to round over. And that's what I want. A nice gradual curve from the side down to the edge. You can also probably still see that, if you can, the burr is still there. So I don't want to break off the burr. The burr is going to come off on its own, so you want to leave it there. And so I'm just going to take this through all the grits. And this is where I will speed things up a little bit. So I'm not necessarily going to go through the entire process of doing just the side, just the bevel, and then rounding it. Now, what I'm going to do is sort of combine all that into one sort of dance on the stone here. So I'll start flat, and then I'll rock the knife up, making sure that I get the side and the bevel, and that I'm rounding over. So I don't know if you can hear that, but you should be able to hear the difference between when the knife is flat like that and when it's rocked up. And again, I'm just doing the rocking motion here as I stroke back and forth. And what I've found is that by the time you get to this grit, the burr is usually gone. I don't know if it's because the steel on these knives is just the hardness of it is such that that little burr that's hanging on can't survive past a certain grit or certain thinness or something. Um, but there's no burr left anymore. Well, maybe a tiny bit. And this is a thing that I try to drill into first time sharpeners is when you're stropping, there's the desire to like flip the knife because maybe because you've watched too many movies or something. But like at the end of the stroke, don't flip the knife through the compound because then you're just putting like a microscopic roundover on your fresh edge, right? So either you can either roll backwards and pick the knife up or just lift it up. And I do the side a little bit and I will tilt up to get, press the edge down into the strop a little to get the just the just the edge stropped. But I don't go crazy, when the you can see that the compound is starting to turn dark here. Same sort of principle as, is the stone removing particles that you can see in the water. Um, if the strop is turning dark, that means there are some particles of metal that are being left on the strop. It's sort of embedded in the compound. So that is about it. This side. Now I'm a little distracted running all this gear at the same time as trying to do this. So I think this is probably not my absolute best. I mean, it's got all the things that I need though. The the knife has a decent polish from about here, let me switch back here. The knife has a decent polish about from there down. The edge, I'm looking at the edge. It's nice and straight. You want this edge to be, perfectly straight. It's got a nice needle sharp point. Um, it's there's no nicks or anything. I did the end grain test. I got a nice clean cut there, and like I said, the sort of proof is in the pudding. If it carves well and cleanly, um, providing you're using good technique, then it's sharp enough to carve with. So I think this one's good to go.